I have to admit, every time God Howard comes out and makes some outlandish statement, I can't refrain from offering commentary privately on how unlikely his statement is to be true. And here I find myself publicly airing these self-same pet peeves, for similar reasons. You might remember statements along the lines of Fallout 3 has 300 endings, or it just works, or the absolutely horrific condition Fallout 76 was released in. This is anything but new. But guess what? There's a new IP around the corner, Starfield, to be released on 11/11 of this year, and we've been told by none other than God Howard himself that Starfield will represent a return to the roots of Bethesda with stronger emphasis on traditional RPG elements. Contained in his statement, of course, is the tacit acknowledgement that Bethesda's games have been less than RPG-ish, shall we say, in recent years, with Skyrim being the most prominent example of this. No attributes, no classes, just to do whatever you want to do, romp around the landscape. And I say this as someone with many, many hours of Skyrim clocked in, modded up to the wazoo, of course. Earlier Elder Scrolls games, of course, had attributes tied to the character as well as a class you decided on. Fallout 3 had its attribute system with strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck, sometimes referred to by the acronym SPECIAL, and these were importantly tied to the perks you could gain, more often than not as qualifiers for the purposes of perk investment. This was all fairly RPG in a traditional sense, but by decree and fiat of God Howard, close to a decade ago, this was not the vision he had planned for certain games going forward, hence why Skyrim is the way it is, though oddly enough Fallout 4 retained some of this system. But recently, in a discussion, God Howard revealed that Starfield would be a return not just to this type of system, but would be an outright RPG. Because, and I am reading between the lines of his statements here, market forces would be more open to the idea than he had previously thought. Starfield will be that grand return to classical Bethesda RPGs. To claim this, but how likely is this to be true? The reason why God Howard has spoken of a return to RPG elements that their games were formerly known for is because of his original calculus, and one that paid off, I might add, that stripping Skyrim of these elements would not damage the sales of the game and might even make it more appealing. And the game did sell really, really well. But the real question is, did it sell well because it was stripped of those elements or for other reasons? I'm going to suggest other reasons, and perhaps God Howard thinks that too. But God Howard was right about one thing. Complex elements are not very appealing to your typical action RPG player. And let's be honest, Skyrim is an action RPG at the end of the day, which isn't a bad thing. The Witcher 3 is an action RPG, and it's a very, very good game. But if you understand RPG to mean complex elements, stats, attributes, important and consequential decisions to be made that have an impact on the story, the kinds you might see in Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder games, then you're likely to be sorely disappointed. Because regardless of whether or not Bethesda has added stats and attributes back into Starfield, it doesn't matter. It's going to be an action RPG. Maybe with certain RPG elements, but that doesn't change the actual nature and genre of the game. Now, I do want to make it clear that I have absolutely no idea whether or not Starfield will be good, though I am convinced that modders can and will make it a good game, even if it's not a good game. But rather, that God Howard's claim of a return to RPGs is spurious at best, given his track record of statements over the years, and the very nature of open-world action RPGs such as Skyrim tell us a different story, or in fact very little story at all. A healthy dose of skepticism is needed here. The hype train is long gone. As always, thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel, and I will check you out later. Take care.